An unidentified man hijacks a plane, demands money, and then vanishes into the night sky. For 50 years, no one has ever found him. This is the case of D.B. Cooper. November 24, 1971. Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 is soaring through the skies above the Pacific Northwest. On board are 36 passengers and a crew of 3. It's a routine flight from New York to Seattle, Washington. But tonight, there is someone on board who will change everything. As the plane flies over the Cascade Mountain Range, a man sitting in the back of the aircraft begins to write a note. The man had boarded the flight earlier that day in Portland under the name Don Cooper. He paid for his ticket in cash, and up until this point, nothing about him had seemed out of the ordinary. He checked a briefcase and was wearing a dark suit, a black trench coat, a white shirt, a black tie, and a black hat. He even wore sunglasses indoors, which in the 70s was considered kind of cool. He hands the note to the nearest flight attendant, and within minutes, the entire plane has been evacuated. As we know it, the hijacking has begun. It is now 2:30 p.m., and the plane has made an emergency landing in Seattle. As the passengers leave the plane, they see a man in a dark suit waiting for them. He gives each passenger a mysterious envelope before they disembark. Inside is $1,000 US, along with instructions not to say anything about the contents to anyone, especially the police. Don Cooper turns back to the plane and heads inside. He tells the pilot to fly to Mexico City, and that he wants $200,000 and 4 parachutes. The pilots try to negotiate. They agree to give him the money, but they tell him they don't have any parachutes on board. Cooper says he'll take whatever they have. The pilots tell him they have to, and Cooper agrees. Now, instead of heading to Mexico City, the plane makes a refueling stop in Mexico. Once airborne again, Don Cooper asks for the money and the parachutes. The pilots hand over the bills. Cooper counts it quickly. It's the right amount, and when he sees that there are only 2 parachutes, sangre. Cooper threatens to blow up the plane, unless they get him the other 2. The pilots tell him they couldn't help him, and the angry man puts a bomb threat into action. He writes another note and instructs the pilots to descend to 10,000 feet. Then he instructs them to set the autopilot to 21 degrees and to release the rear stairs. When the pilots refuse, Cooper says he's going to blow up the plane. Now they have no choice. At 8:17 p.m., the pilots open the rear stairs. A man dressed in a suit walks out into the darkness holding a briefcase. He jumps off the plane. It's unknown if he had a parachute. All that was known for sure was that he jumped. In the morning, after the sky was no longer dark, the FBI searched for the hijacker. They found no body, no parachute, but they did find the briefcase. The plane had traveled at least 30 miles since the jump, but there was still no sign of the man in the suit. Later on, they would find the money. The $200,000 in ransom had been taken from the U.S. Treasury. It was brand new, but in 1980, 9 years after the hijacking, some of those same bills turned up near the Columbia River. Someone had tried to exchange some of the money, but the teller thought it was odd that someone would want to exchange old, dirty bills, so she put them aside. It just so happened that an FBI agent saw the news report about the strange transaction and immediately dispatched a team to go and collect the bills. The dirty money was collected and bagged as evidence. To this day, it is the only physical evidence the FBI has recovered from the scene. Since the hijacking, there have been dozens of people who have come forward claiming to be D.B. Cooper. To date, none of these claims have been verified. In fact, the FBI has never even confirmed that the man who jumped from the plane was the same man who wrote the note in the first place. That being said, there are some interesting theories. One theory claims that Don Cooper panicked. As soon as he exited the plane, he deployed his parachute and was lost at sea. He was known to be afraid of heights, and this would explain why he did not exit the plane sooner. This also explains why no body was ever found. His body washed out to sea and was never recovered. A second theory claims that Don Cooper survived the jump. He landed safely and disappeared with his $200,000 ransom. Some say that he faked his death and got plastic surgery, disappearing forever. But there are 2 more theories that might explain how someone could disappear without a trace. After hijacking a plane full of people, Theory No. 3 claims that Don Cooper wasn't a private citizen, but rather someone with military training. He was likely part of the Green Berets, and he used his advanced training to make the jump. He was a trained parachutist and knew exactly what he was doing. That's why no parachute was found. He took it with him. He either died in the jump or he landed safely and disappeared into the woods. Theory No. 4 paints an even more interesting picture. It claims that Don Cooper was part of a larger conspiracy. There was at least one person on the ground helping him. A mysterious woman was waiting for him after he parachuted out of the plane. She helped him escape, So why doesn't the FBI just catch her? Well, it turns out she may have been a government official. Some say that she was a CIA agent. Others say that she worked for the NSA. Either way, she ensured that Cooper was able to escape the country. If caught, he would have been sent to prison for life. But thanks to his accomplice, he lived to see another day. There's really only one problem with this theory. For it to make sense, there would have needed to be several people involved, including the accomplices on the ground, and possibly even on the plane. For all of this to work, there would have needed to be dozens of people involved, yet nobody came forward with any information. Sure, the FBI has looked into hundreds of leads and interviewed hundreds of people, but they have never come close to finding any of the people involved. For nearly 40 years, the FBI investigated the case, chasing down thousands of leads and interviewing hundreds of possible witnesses. In 2016, they officially closed the investigation, stating it was fruitless. They released dozens of black and white mugshots of possible suspects, but none of them matched the real Cooper. To this day, the FBI doesn't even know if Don Cooper was a man at all. It could have been a woman who used a false name. We simply don't know. As for Richard McCoy, the supposed look-alike, he too is dead. He died in 2017. Cooper's nephew tracked him down and invited him to do a DNA test. The results showed that the two men were not related. McCoy refused to take the test and continued to claim he was D.B. Cooper. So what actually happened to D.B. Cooper? Did he die in the jump, or is he still out there somewhere? The truth remains hidden. What do you believe? Thank you for watching.